The Sumerian gods. Forever tarnished by the History Channel, the Sumerian gods now for the most part tend to only attract wackos who probably believe the pyramids are alien spaceships or whatever, but we are not here for that. We are here to talk about power levels. You know, that thing that is definitely gonna get me chicks. So, how powerful are the Sumerian gods? Well, let's talk about it. But first, we need a very brief introduction to the mythology so that any of this can make any sense. Alright, so a god named An, chief of the Sumerian pantheon, slept with his wife, Ninhursag, and they had children called the Anunnaki. One of the Anunnaki, the goddess Ninlil, created something called the Mes, commonly translated as divine powers. Here I want to stop for a moment and tell you that I don't actually know how to pronounce any of these names. I don't speak Sumerian and generally I am very bad at pronouncing things, but the secret, my friend, you see, is to say things with confidence. So, what are the Mes? The Mes are concepts, ideas, but in physical form. If you have a Me, you have authority over that concept. It is said that there is an infinite amount of Mes, and if you have all of them, you become big strong. Almost all of the Sumerian gods have a certain amount of Mes at their disposal, but some gods have access to all of the Mes. Alright, with this as a foundation, we can begin. In this video, we will talk about 5 gods: Enki, Inanna, Enlil, Ninurta, and An. Obviously, there are many more gods in the Sumerian pantheon, but these 5 are the ones who are mentioned the most, so they have quite a few statements and feats that we can use to determine their powers. However, before we get into specifics, there are some powers that all of the Sumerian gods share, so let's cover that first. All of the Sumerian gods can transmute matter, including themselves. They can look like anything and turn anything into anything else. In addition, the Sumerian gods can all manipulate fate. This is a power that in any other mythological setting would automatically make you one of the strongest beings. And never mind just mythology, in almost any fictional setting, a character with the power to control fate would be one of, if not the most powerful character in that setting. And yet, for the Sumerian gods, this is trivial. They all can do it. They also can curse anyone, seemingly in any way they want. They can even do it to each other, and they seem to have the power to give abilities to others. Whether the Sumerian gods themselves have the powers they can give to others, that's a different question, but logic dictates they would. Lastly, the Sumerian gods are all eternal. The passage of time means nothing to them, but do not confuse this with immortality, because they certainly can die. Alright, now let's get into specifics. First, Enki. Right off the bat, Enki is said to be the most powerful among the Anunnaki. This would put Enki above the likes of the goddess Ninlil, who created an infinite amount of concepts in physical form. And perhaps this is no exaggeration, because he is even said to be superior to his mother Ninhursag. Scaling aside, when Enki was born, by the decree of An, Enki was made very smart, and he can manipulate water, specifically the primordial waters which existed even before the gods were born. But aside from being very old, these waters do not seem to have any special properties, and presumably he can become intangible. His most impressive feat, however, is that one time he taught a crow how to be a farmer. I just think that's cute. But jokes aside, Enki was appointed the guardian of the Mes. He has access to all of them, and this makes him omniscient. Now let's be clear about something. Having all of the Mes does not automatically make you invincible. Remember, the Mes are physical things. You could steal some from Enki and he would be depowered. Alright, now let's move on to Inanna. Inanna is the daughter of Enki. She was born a fighter, and the god An gave her the ability to do the impossible.
Bro, fight the power!
On top of this, Inanna has a certain amount of Mes. The number varies from 7 to 50, but on screen right now, you can see the concepts over which Inanna is confirmed to have authority. Inanna is easily a planetary threat. It is said her screams alone are potent enough to scare the god An. In fact, according to An himself, Inanna eventually surpasses him. In addition, she can manipulate the weather, and she is said to be as fast as a Sumerian dragon. I'll admit I don't know how fast a Sumerian dragon is, but Inanna can traverse the entire Sumerian cosmos. Granted, we don't know how long it took her, but even if it took her thousands of years, that's still massively faster than light. However, she does have some weird anti-feats that could make you doubt whether or not she's actually as powerful as she's said to be. First, Inanna was once killed by 7 Anunnaki. It took 7 of them, and Inanna didn't have her Mes. Also, she was in the underworld when it happened, and it can be inferred that the Sumerian gods lose their powers when they are in the underworld, so this isn't that terrible. Her second anti-feat, however, is a bit worse. Inanna once failed to find a human. One day Inanna was sleeping under a tree, and then a boy comes in and he... After that, the boy runs away because he knows what he did. Inanna wakes up and she's understandably pissed, so she travels around the entire planet looking for the person who did that to her so that she can murder him. And yet, even with all of her powers, she cannot find him. The excuse is that the boy goes inside a city and blends in with the people there. Inanna then cannot find him because she cannot tell humans apart. To her, they all look the same. Fair enough, I suppose, but her third anti-feat is the most egregious one. In Sumerian mythology, there is this bird called the Ansu bird. By the way, just to sidetrack for a moment, the power to manipulate fate is so ubiquitous in Sumerian mythology that even this bird has it. Anyways, in this story, Inanna has a tree. It's a very nice tree. So nice, in fact, that the Ansu bird decides to make its nest there. And then Inanna cannot make the Ansu bird go away. She has to call Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh does it for her. This is a very good feat for Gilgamesh, not so much for Inanna. And the text does not provide an answer for why Inanna could not get rid of the bird. She is just incompetent for no reason in this one story. So is Inanna actually as strong as she's said to be? I would say so. For the most part, the texts treat Inanna and her powers with gravitas, but if the anti-feats I mentioned are enough for you to not think she's actually that powerful, then that's perfectly understandable. Last thing about her, Enki eventually grants Inanna access to all of the mess, which obviously would make her big strong. Moving on, the next deity is Enlil, the brother of Enki. Enlil is considered king of the Sumerian gods. The god An, by the way, is also considered the king of the Sumerian gods, and in addition to that, An is also considered the father of the Sumerian gods as well. But for the sake of simplicity, in this video, Enlil will be regarded as the king of the gods and An solely as their father. Anyways, aside from being considered king of the gods, Enlil is said to be the most powerful of the Anunnaki. Sounds familiar? See, the title of strongest in Sumerian mythology is actually very contested, but we will get to that later. For now, what matters is that Enlil is definitely powerful. His wife is Ninlil, the creator of the mess, and she obeys him. He is also said to be more powerful than both Enki and Inanna, and he is consistently regarded as an equal to the god An. But enough scaling, what does Enlil has to offer? Well, Enlil is the source of the ability to manipulate fate in Sumerian mythology. It is Enlil who gives this power to others. In addition, Enlil is omniscient. Presumably, this is because he has access to all of the mess. Even though the mess are not physically near him, he can draw from their power. But even without the boost from the mess, he is naturally very smart, and presumably he is very fast as well, since he traveled throughout the entire Sumerian cosmos in a non-specified amount of time. Also, he should be super strong too, because at the very beginning of creation, Enlil separated the heavens from the earth with a golden gardening tool. And allegedly, Sumerian heaven is so heavy no one can lift it. Lastly, he can heal you just by looking at you. However, despite being so powerful, Enlil was once arrested by the Anunnaki. Presumably, it took all of them, but considering it is said he is above them, this is kinda strange. But this is said to have happened when Enlil was young, so one could headcanon that he somehow was weaker back then. Moving on, next one is Ninurta. Ninurta is the son of Enlil, and he was created with the sole purpose of fulfilling the will of his father. In order to achieve this, Ninurta was born big strong. He was given 50 mess, and in addition, he was granted access to all of the mess. He is said to have infinite strength, he is wise, and he can cover a league of distance in a single step. Ninurta is stated to be more powerful than all of the Anunnaki, and in fact, he is more powerful than all of the gods in general. Ninurta has so much strength that the mere act of him marching to battle threatens the entire planet, and just by talking, he shakes the entirety of Sumerian creation. In addition, Ninurta has a plethora of weapons at his disposal, but his preferred weapon is a mace called the Sharur. The Sharur is a talking, sentient mace that can transform into a multi-headed winged lion that presumably can breathe fire. Also, it has infinite stamina. As for the exact number of heads, the Sharur is said to have either 7 or 50 heads. On its own, the Sharur is big strong, and in fact, it is considered the general of Ninurta, because the Sharur does things on behalf of Ninurta, like fighting or delivering messages. One day, while it was doing its thing, the Sharur saw a very powerful monster called the Asag. The Sharur then goes back to Ninurta and tells him, "Hey, there's this really strong thing out there, I don't think you should fight it." And Ninurta's reply is basically, "Oh really? Watch me." Ninurta then goes, fights the Asag, and wins. Their battle was so insane that the god An almost pooped his pants. But what's more impressive, the Sharur itself did not believe Ninurta could beat the Asag. Let's put that on perspective. Imagine if in Norse mythology, Mjolnir could talk. No one in Norse mythology understands the strength of Thor better than his hammer. So imagine if one day Mjolnir said to Thor, "Hey, don't fight that guy because he's too strong for you." And then Thor goes and fights the guy without his hammer and wins. That's actually what happened here with Ninurta. which means that Ninurta fighting you with a weapon is unironically him holding back. And now, let's get to the big guy, An, the father of the Sumerian gods. So talking about the power of An is actually really easy. He is omnipotent, he can do anything. He can even order Ninurta to marry another goddess named Bau. Bau herself is said to be omniscient, so An can even make very powerful people do what he says. Now, if you've been paying attention, you will disagree with me saying that An is this powerful. After all, Enlil is said to be his equal, and both Inanna and Ninurta are powerful enough to scare him. So An cannot possibly be at the top of the food chain. But then again, we have that one story where Inanna steals the mess from Enki, and after Enki is incapable of retrieving them, it is implied that An himself descends from heaven and takes them back. And speaking of the mess, we don't even know how powerful they make you in comparison to An. Sometimes having the mess makes you equal to An, sometimes having the mess makes you superior to him, and sometimes even with the mess, you are still below him. These contradictions sometimes happen in the same text. Having the mess definitely makes you powerful. One time, Ninurta challenged Enki, while Enki had all of the mess. Enki then creates a turtle that physically humiliates the god Ninurta. This was done to teach Ninurta humility, because if the mighty god Ninurta could not defeat a turtle, then how dare he challenge Enki with all of the mess? Having the mess definitely makes you powerful, but not even the Sumerians themselves agreed on how powerful someone with the mess would be in comparison to An. How can we then hope to have an answer? Really, any of these 5 guys can be considered more powerful than the other 4. It's basically a matter of choice. Personally, I say that Ninurta with the mess would be the most powerful out of the 5 of them, but you can easily make an argument for the other 4. It's basically up to you. Anyways, that's pretty much it. So, let's answer the question then. How powerful are the Sumerian gods? To make it simple, think of it this way. If you want to pair up any Sumerian god against any other fictional character, you must first answer this question. Is that fictional character affected by fate? If the answer to that question is yes, then the Sumerian god automatically wins by default. That's how powerful the Sumerian gods are. With that said, I don't have anything else to add, so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.